Well, good morning, everybody. Man, yesterday was great, am I right? Man, OSU, OU, man, what a great Saturday that was. Man, that was awesome. That was awesome. Hey, look, I am going to ask your opinion on a couple things, okay? So here we go. Number one, Coke or Pepsi? See, I always thought that Pepsi's motto should be, is Pepsi okay? To which the answer is no. Do you have Dr. Pepper? What about this? Is it time for Coach Gundy to go? Or can he stay? Okay, so if you'd asked us that before yesterday, we'd have been like, yeah, I don't know. But now, I mean, winning solves a lot of problems, doesn't it? What about this? Christmas lights. Is it Thanksgiving to New Year's? Or can you have them lit past New Year's? You know, what is your opinion on that? To me, you cannot light. You can put them up before Thanksgiving if you need to, but you better not light those suckers before Thanksgiving, okay? And on New Year's, they got to go off, okay? That's for me. They need to go off, okay? Get them down. We're moving on, okay? What about this? Should Brahms Burgers just go right in the trash and drive to Whataburger for a real hamburger? Or are you a weirdo and actually like Brahms Burgers? Okay. Most of us have opinions on just about everything, am I right? Now, some issues are black and white to us, right? And some are a little bit more gray and more complex. Sometimes these things are fun to talk about, and sometimes they're not. And you know what I'm talking about, because Thanksgiving's coming up, and how many times has Thanksgiving dinner been ruined with stuffing on the walls because politics came up, right? We know what we're talking about there. Now, there's some really sticky subjects out there, and we haven't even begun to talk about church topics. Oh man, there have been some differences of opinions about church stuff. Am I right? I went to First Christian Church in Texhoma, Oklahoma, okay? And when I was in high school, back in the 90s, okay, they thought that drums on stage was wrong. I mean, absolutely wrong. You cannot have drums on the stage, right? Now, if you go to First Christian Church there in Texhoma, you're going to find drums on the stage. How did they get there? How did they go from it being wrong to now, you know, they're part of the worship there? Well, I'll tell you exactly how, because I remember it. When I was in high school, like I said, have you guys ever done a youth Sunday or a student takeover Sunday where the students are in charge of everything? Okay, well, we did one of those one time. And of course, anything goes on that Sunday, right? And so you can put drums on the stage for Youth Sunday, right? Nobody's got a problem with that because it's just the youth. But we just never took them off. So watch out. If we do a Youth Sunday, you better have your antennas up because we might be changing something underneath the radar. They still have them to this day, but they thought that they were wrong, right? Now, if you thought that was bad, that was nothing compared to when we moved the communion table. You guys remember churches that used to have communion tables, right? Now imagine this, the audacity to take the communion table off the stage, put it in the back of the room, and replace it with drums. Oh man, talk about heresy, right? Heresy. Oh man, do you know why the church is so amazing? It's the people. Do you know why church is so challenging? It's the people, right? Oh, man. Now, any history buffs in here? Anybody like history? Anybody fail history and just don't want to hear about it? Right? Okay, yeah. Just plug your ears on this one. I got a little history for you, a little church history. In the Civil War, every church denomination split in the Civil War, except for ours. Now, I know we're not a denomination, but we are a group of churches, the Christian churches, right? And our group of churches didn't split, and we were pretty proud about that, you know. Except there was something that happened over the next few years that was kind of interesting. There was a division growing because after the Civil War, the South, the economy of the South was devastated. And then the rural churches, they just didn't have a lot of money. At that time, organs were only imported from Europe. So they were very expensive. And so the southern churches and some of the more rural churches could not afford organs. And so one of the mottos of the Restoration movement was, where Scripture speaks, we speak. Where Scripture's silent, we're silent. And so what some of the more poorer churches and some of the more rural churches started to take that to mean was that if Scripture is silent on it, it is prohibited. Okay, and so now Scripture doesn't talk about organs, in worship or musical instruments in worship. And so therefore, they must be prohibited. And so some of the poorer churches started to take that stance. And then in 1906, the U.S. government was doing a census. And they discovered, wow, you guys did split. You guys have two separate churches here. And so in 1906 was born the Church of Christ, non-instrumental, and then the Christian church, right? And that's how we split over differences about the organ, right? Now later on, you guys might know that the disciples of Christ were the third string that came out of that. And over the next few decades, we began to divide. And there was no by 1968, it was finally listed, but we had split much earlier than that. And so the three churches that came out of the Restoration movement were the Church of Christ, the Christian church, and the disciples of Christ. And it was all because of differing opinions. Differing opinions are a constant in the church. Count on it. But they don't have to wedge us apart. Paul wrote to the Philippian church in Philippi, and he talks about a group of people that were causing trouble in the church. And it is important and interesting to note that he is not talking about false teachers. He's not talking about unbelievers. He's talking about genuine believers. That's important to note because he's saying even believers can have disagreements, and even believers can cause discord, and even believers can get wedged apart in conflict. And so look what he says in Philippians chapter 1, and I'm going to read 15 and 17. If you were here last week, we talked about this. It is true that some preach Christ out of what? Envy and rivalry, right? There's conflict there. There's conflict. But others do so out of goodwill. Look in 17. The former preach Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerity, supposing that they can stir up trouble for me while I am in chains. Not only did they have divisive people inside the church, right? That was coming from inside these walls. But they also had, we know this from other parts of Philippians, that they had people from outside the church that were putting pressure on the church and that they were causing division from the outside. So they had both. People inside the church causing division and outside. So Paul writes more. In Philippians 1, verse 27, look at that. And he says that, look at those first two words. Whatever happens, man, whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Whatever happens, if things are good, conduct yourselves worthy. If things are hard, conduct yourselves worthy. If people are dividing, conduct yourselves worthy. That is a verse that I think every single one of us needs to tattoo on our hearts. Whatever happens, no matter what happens in our lives, times are good, times are hard, times are complex, times are easy. Whatever happens, conduct yourselves worthy of the gospel of Christ. Sometimes we get caught up in trying to fight back against people who seem to be attacking Christianity. Some years ago, there was this deal where, do you guys remember this, where the companies were starting to have people stop saying Merry Christmas, remember this? And instead to say Happy Holidays, right? And a lot of Christians didn't like that, right? They got caught up in that. And they started to try to fight back against that and try to make people say, no, Christmas is about what? Christ. You got to keep Christ in Christmas. And so you need to say the words, Merry Christmas, right? And we were trying to get to where we were forcing companies to make their employees say the words, say it, Merry Christmas, okay? And we got caught up in that. And I understand it because it's our culture and we want to hold on to that. We're grasping at that. But I want to tell you something. It's a hard thing. It's a really rough thing to try to hold a non-Christian world to Christian standards. In fact, it's not very healthy for the church at all. And nobody got saved because somebody said, Merry Christmas at Lowe's. But a lot of people got turned away from Christianity because we were stamping our foot and demanding that they say those words. Man, we just want to be known for what? Our love. Our love. That's it. Love is what changes people, not forcing them to say certain words. Love. We want to be known for love as a whole church and as a local church. We want to be known for something, and we want that to be love, and not fighting back. Do you know what the early church did when they were being persecuted? I'll tell you what they did not do. They did not hold rallies. They did not boycott companies. In fact, go easy on me here. In fact, I believe that Paul actually taught the opposite. When he told them that it was okay for mature Christians to eat the meat that was offered to idols, he said, it's okay if you give them your money, even though they're doing evil. It's fine because you know the truth. More on that on another Sunday. They did not get loud, and they did not demand their politicians to act. What did they do? What did they do? They prayed. They prayed. That's what they did. If you really, really want to affect change, you pray. Who do you want to be heard by? That's the question. Do you want to be heard by God, the one that can actually affect change in people's hearts? Or do we want to hold a megaphone and be heard by everybody on the streets? Whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. And do you know what this means? It's kind of a weird way to word things, right? What does it mean to act in a manner worthy of the gospel? Well, it means exactly this. You guys, a long time ago, we all saw the movie Saving Private Ryan, right? We all saw that. And where they're trying to find Private Ryan because his 3 brothers had all died, and so they're trying to spare their mother from losing all 4 sons. So they don't know where he is, and so a group of soldiers has to go around trying to find this guy. And in the meantime, a few of them actually died. They gave their lives to trying to save Private Ryan. In fact, the Captain Miller, at the very end of the movie, he also dies. And right as he's taking his last breaths, he leans in and he says to Private Ryan when they finally found him, and he says this, earn it, earn this. As Christians, Jesus paid a terrible price for us, a horrible price. And this is the gospel, that the amazing news is that we don't have to pay that price. Jesus paid it for us. And now it's up to us to live lives worthy of that price. We can't earn it like Captain Miller said. We can't earn it, but we can live lives that are worthy of it. Your salvation was not free. My salvation cost a heavy price, and we can live lives worthy of it. And so let me ask you, whatever happens in your life, are you living a life worthy of that gospel, worthy of that price? Whatever happens. Then in chapter 2, Paul continues the thought of unity. Look in chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from His love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then look at what he says in verse 2. Then make my joy complete by being what? Like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit, and of one mind. Like-minded, same love, one in spirit, one mind. All about unity. The unity of the church was a massive desire for not only Paul, but Jesus as well. What was Jesus' last prayer right before He goes to the cross? He prayed about unity. In John chapter 17, we'll put it up. Verse 20 and 21, it says, my prayer is not for them alone. He was talking about His disciples. He said, I pray also for those who would believe in me through their message. So He's talking about us. Jesus prayed for you. And here's what He prayed. That all of them may be one, Father. Just as you are in me and I am in you. Now, there are certain things that can be a wedge to unity. In Indiana, when I lived there, I would cut down, split, stack, and burn a massive amount of wood every winter time. Something like 15 ricks of wood, okay? And I was the coach of the football team, and so I would provide pizza one day, and we'd have the football team over, and they would help me do that, right? But it was a lot of wood. Now this, as you guys probably know, this is a wedge, right? And if you were gonna split wood by hand, which I didn't do a lot, the hydraulics is amazing, right? But if you're gonna split wood by hand, you would start with this. This is a wedge. And look how it begins. Look how it begins. It begins small, doesn't it? Wedges always begin small. And what do they do over time? They grow. This thing is an effective tool for splitting things apart. It's a wedge. Now, to have a little fun, I challenged our staff into a log splitting competition this week. Okay? So we had Taylor versus me versus Amos. And the competition was this. Who could split a log in the fewest amount of strikes? Okay? So I'm going to have you, we videoed it, but don't play it yet. Okay? And I'm going to have you vote for who you think is going to win this competition. Okay? So we have Taylor, Taylor owned his own gym. Enough said right there, okay? His nickname when he was in the first grade was Captain Beefcake. One time, he carried a whole tray of milk boxes into class with only his left arm, and legend has it that tornadoes are scared to go near his house. This guy is an absolute beast. Then you have me. Listen, I'm farm strong, okay? That's the thing. When I was a teenager, I carried a baby calf every morning on my right shoulder into the barn to feed it. And every day that calf got bigger and bigger, but I got stronger and stronger until the very end I carried a whole steer to the barn. And I fed that, okay? And one time I slammed a revolving door. And then you have Amos. Amos weighs in at about my thigh and Taylor's calf. But he's squirrely. You got to watch out for those guys. And he's from Texas, which is a wild card, okay? So I want you guys to applaud, okay, based on who you think is going to win this thing, okay? So who is Team Taylor? Okay. Who's Team Brian? Okay? And who's Team Amos? I did not expect that. In fact, Taylor played what I thought was going to happen. Okay, well, anyway, here you go. Here's the competition.
That was good. That's one. That's one. Oh, I missed it. There you go. Let's crack it. There you go. That's four. That's four.
All right, doesn't it feel like just manly to split a piece of wood? All right, here we go. What were those guys called? The bodybuilder guys? The power team? This is my power team tryout here.
Oh! It did! It did!
I lost my microphone.
There it is. So, hey, Amos, I'm proud of you, man. I really thought it was going to take like 15, and you got it way less than that. So, next week we're going to have a competition to see how fast we can wash my truck. So, now let's talk about the wedges of unity. And sometimes this can be in church, right? There are things that if we're not careful, that can split unity in the church. But this can also be in any relationship, in the home, at work, wherever we are. There are wedges to relationships, right? And the first one is the wedge of preference. We all have preferences when it comes to church, when it comes to how things are in our home, when it comes to how things are at work. We all have preferences. But we have to understand them for what they are. They are preferences. They're not issues of right and wrong. They're preferences. Now, there are sometimes issues of right and wrong. If I was to stand up here and preach that there are multiple roads to heaven, multiple ways that you can be saved, man, that's going to be an issue of right and wrong. But music is not. That is a preference. Now, how many of you love that hymn that we sang right before? I love that hymn. I love that hymn. I grew up on hymns, and I love hymns, right? The guy that I worked for last, he was not about hymns. In fact, he didn't let us sing them at all, right? And that was okay because that was a preference that he had. I wanted them, he did not. It's not an issue. He was not sinning by omitting them, right? It was a preference, right? In Indiana, I served at a church there that we had a girl that signed up to be a sound tech. And on her first Sunday, right, she just wanted to be involved. She wanted to help. And on her very first Sunday, she was there, she was serving, and she put the volume where we told her to put it at, right? We were always trying to push it a little bit loud just because, we were trying to grow young, right, and reach young families, right? And so we told her to where to put it. And one of the people in our church, they didn't like it. And they stood up, and they walked back there, and to this girl, and they didn't know that it was her first time. They didn't know. But they said, turn it down. And not only did they say it, she shouldn't have ever done it in the first place, but to be that rude about it, it just devastated her. And to this day, she does not serve there. It totally devastated her. Now, our pastor found out about it, and he called that lady that went over there, he called her that afternoon. And he was pretty honest with her. And he said, look, Jesus was doing some incredible things that morning. We had a baptism that day. It was awesome. Jesus was doing some incredible things, and you were not part of that. Actually, you were part of the opposition. You were on the other team, Satan's team. Wow. Was he wrong? No. Our preferences are just that. We cannot push them into the category of right and wrong. And we all know that change is necessary, right? We'll change how we do church, but not the why. We will never change the why. You guys have heard the phrase say, methods are many, principles are few, methods always change, principles never do, right? Andy Stanley said it this way, marry your mission, date your model. Fall in love with your vision, but stay mildly infatuated with your approach. We will change how we do things all the time, but we will never change why. Jesus will always be the mission. Helping people find and follow Jesus will always be the mission, but how we do that will always change. We know that we want more young families in the church, right? That's the lifeblood of the church. We have to tilt our style to what they prefer. And man, that can be hard for some of us that have been in church for a long time because we have preferences. And it's not what we prefer anymore. But let me ask you a question. What is the faith of the next generation worth? Everything, right? Everything. When I'm old, wrinkly, and just looking like they need to put me away, right? I want to be the guy that is sitting there in a church and how they're doing things is not how I prefer, but yet I'm still an encouragement and a blessing. I want to be admired when I'm old, not tolerated when I'm old. If they're doing church the way I prefer when I'm that old, they're probably doing it wrong. Because you know what I prefer more than music volume? Souls being saved from hell. That's what I prefer. And so let's put our preferences in the back seat to reaching people in the front seat. That's a wedge. But then there's the wedge of this one, and this one gets all of us. Bitterness. Oh man, have we been bitter before? I have. The wedge of bitterness, how does it start? It starts small, doesn't it? But unless we're intentional about doing something about it, what happens? It grows over time. We had a homeless ministry at one of the churches I served at, and it became really big, really big. In fact, so big that it became a drain on the church as a whole, and we weren't able to do the main ministries well. And so the elders had to do something that was extremely hard. They had to go in and they had to shut down the homeless ministry because they wanted to take something good that was going well and shut that down so that we could do something really great. It worked over time. We were able to do a homeless ministry later on that was even better and bigger because the church was doing better. But man, can you imagine what happened whenever we did that? What the people that ran the homeless ministry said, what they accused our elders of. Man, they were bitter. And because they didn't try to seek the other perspective. And that wedge of bitterness started out small with them, but it grew over time. In fact, all those people wound up leaving the church. And they had, in the midst of it, and this was part of the problem, they had created their own bank account. It was a ministry of the church, but they had their own bank account. I don't know how they got that done. But so they took the money that they were making from the homeless ministry. and they were putting it in a separate account. And so then with that account, what did they do? They started buying some of the things that they needed for their ministry. And one of those things was an ice machine, right? Every church probably has an ice machine. Well, they bought it from their money, right? So whenever the homeless ministry shut down and they left church, they took the ice machine, they stole it. And I especially hate it because I had a lot of youth events. I had to drive to the gas station for years and years and go get bagged ice, right? They took the ice machine. The only way to kill bitterness is to be intentional about it. Man, sometimes we have preferences at home. We have preferences at work. And when those things aren't met, our expectations aren't met, that's when it creeps in. Watch out. When your expectations of how things should go in your mind aren't met, that's the opportunity for Satan to move in. Right there, the door is cracked and bitterness can creep in. And if we're not intentional about getting rid of it, it'll invade the whole house. We have to be careful about it. And the last one is the wedge of spiritual superiority. This is the one that usually doesn't start out wrong, though, right? We want to respond to God's generosity in our lives, and so we give back. We serve on a team. We give generously. We do all the things, and those are great things, right? But what can happen is we begin to look down on people who don't, and bam, right there at that moment, that's when it happens. We've just ranked ourselves. We've just ranked ourselves to be better followers of Christ than someone else. And we become spiritually superior. We've got to watch out. We've got to watch out for that. Jesus really didn't like spiritual superiority. He sternly warned the Pharisees about it. It was a real danger to their own faith. And Paul warns against these wedges. He says, make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one mind. But then after that, he gives the recipe for unity. And look at what he says in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but rather in humility value others above yourselves. The first thing that he highlights, and we're going to call these glues, right? The glue of humility. There are things that wedge us apart, and then there's things that glue us together. And the first one that Paul highlights is the glue of humility. Selfish ambition and vain conceit, it splinters unity. Right? But true humility, genuine humility, it binds it. And Paul says we only need to look to Jesus for our example. Right? Look here in Philippians 2, 5 through 8. He says this, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in the very nature God, right? He's God, as up here, right? He did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself what? Nothing. He made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Look, he wasn't forced. Sometimes we are forced to serve, right? Sometimes we're forced to do what people tell us to do. Jesus, he voluntarily became a servant. That's true humility. When you have the right, when you have the title, right? When you have the age, whenever you have the permission to be up here, but then you voluntarily put yourself as a servant. That is genuine humility. He says this, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Humility is remembering who we are and in relationship to God. That's the first way that we become humble, is we remember who we are and who God is. Humility can only happen when we correctly see ourselves. Without God, what are we? Nothing. What are we destined to? Eternal punishment. We owe everything to God, everything. So how could we think more of ourselves unless we forget who we are and who God is? Humility is lifting others up, not bringing them down. It's the opposite of bringing others low. It means questions are greater than statements. Genuinely trying to see other perspectives. It means looking for the good in others, even if it's hard to find it. Genuinely assuming the good in others. When they do something that you don't like, that you, instead of thinking about how they must be twisted up, but you think, man, they might have a reason for it. Humility is encouraging. Instead of making comments that hurt feeling or discourages others, we use our words to build relationships and to give life. The other glue is the glue of not just humility, but others first. Now, that's obviously really close to humility because it takes humility to be others first. Now, Jesus, we all know this, Jesus did not have to die. Am I right? He did not have to. He did not have to suffer, but He was compassionate towards us. Others first is compassionate, really caring about someone. And of course, compassion involves taking action to alleviate the suffering and the difficulty of others. And others first is flexible. Being willing to know that what really matters, okay? Willing to know what really matters, and that we're going to be inflexible on. There's a few things in life that we need to be inflexible on. But there's a lot of things where we need to be flexible on the things that don't matter as much. And of course, the last one is others first is generous. Jesus said you can tell where your heart is by where your money is. I can go on and on about the qualities of a person that help glue a church together, but it all comes down to this: loving others. It's this: am I a wedge? Am I somebody that's splitting relationships apart? And the answer is yes, I am that. Unfortunately, I am that. There are parts of me that my desires, they get in the way of my humility. I can't tell you how many times I have damaged relationships because of what I want, because of the way I think they should go. I have ruined relationships. Oh man, I wish I could go back. Don't you? Don't you wish you could go back to those moments when those words left your mouth? When you could look back on the videotape of your life and then you can see it. Oh man, that doesn't look very good, does it? We have all been here. And we are all still here to some degree. We can't get rid of this completely. It's part of our sin nature in us. But man, I want to put this away. I want to be a guy that binds people and relationships together. I want to be a guy that's encouraging. I want to be a guy that serves first before being served. I want to be a guy that loves people first. That I have messy grace. I want to be a guy that brings people together and binds them in Christ. That's what I want to be. Kathy Mitchell and David Shaw, their words to me are a huge reason that I'm in ministry today. I'll never forget them at First Christian Church in Texhoma, Oklahoma. Doug and Deb McConnell, their generosity changed an entire youth group of mine. Linda Wright, she's known for her love in our town. Wade Guerin was an older guy that was others first, and he became heavily involved in the youth ministry, and he poured his soul into them. Man, I could tell way more stories of generosity and flexibility and encouragement and humility and compassion. I could tell way more stories of that than I could of diversity or divisiveness. The church is not without our warts, but we are still a pretty good thing. We're not perfect, but we are loving. And let's go full swing into love. At the end of all this, the barometer of how we love God is determined by how we love others. Be the very best you can at loving others. It changes lives. We must become known for our love, nothing else. We want to be in the community, and we want the community to be better because we exist. That when people come here, they are transformed by the love that they experience here. At the end of the day, we get to choose. Who are we? Who are we here? Who are we at home? Who are we at work? Who are we at school? We get to choose that. And of course, if you've never been united with Christ and you stand wedged apart from Jesus, I want to tell you right now, the greatest thing that you will ever do is get rid of the wedge and unite yourself with Jesus and change your eternal address. You can do that today. I'm going to be in the front here. You can come talk with me. If you just need prayer, you can come pray with me at the front. If you want to talk to me after service is over, if you want to talk to one of our pastors here, that'd be great. But be intentional and do something worth doing. Let me pray.